It's two conscious guys talking, where conscious male leaders come together and have a discussion that is deep, that is nourishing, that allows us to see the illumination of consciousness that's unfolding progressively for men that are waking up in the world, and where you can get insights on your own awakening as a man, and also for amazing women that want to learn more about men's challenges and struggles that have created some of the dysfunction we've seen within men in its society, often called, quote unquote, the patriarchy and other terms. What created it? What is the genesis of it all? What can we do about it today to empower men to be all that they're meant to be and to support the awakening of consciousness for men and women and all? Hi, Don. How are you?
Good. How are you, Daniel?
Great. I'm making up a story. I know it, but I feel like I knew another Don Young somewhere, and that he was like some badass martial artist or something. So, I don't know. It's just like a thought that comes through my head. Probably not even true, but yeah. But and then I think Don. I'm like, oh, that was my dad's name. I always look at these destinies or whatever synchronicities, and I'm like, I wonder what this is telling me today. Don
Hmm.
Young. Hmm. Like my dad, is he young still? Yeah, he's the eternal in source, right? So I don't know, all these fun thoughts about someone's name, but by the time I'm done, nobody will forget your name, though. That's what's cool. Well, anyway, it's a delight to have you on the show today.
I'm glad to be here. I'm very excited to have a conversation with you, and yeah, we'll go
Cool,
from there.
cool, yeah. So yeah, we chatted just a little bit a little while back. I was like, oh yeah, it took a little while to get this on the books. Not super long, but a little while. And um, yeah, I mean, we wanted to talk about this journey. I know, like, as a conscious male leader, you talk about spiritual awakening and such things, and and you're helping a lot of people with that. And but yet, there's been this journey that you've been on as a guy, and um, you know, I'll ask you right now, like, how's it been going? What's your life like as a guy lately? How's that journey lately?
I mean the journey's been great. I mean, I think one of the things that I'm learning with my spiritual awakening, it's fairly recent, within the last 3 years, 2 years actually at that. Um, is it's just how to reorient my whole life, because I have a different point of view and how I see things, an ethical framework that's different, embracing love as opposed to materialism. You can imagine that's a big difference with things. Um, but it's kind of learning how I live this kind of new life, which is really how I look at it. Is it's a new life in some ways.
Hmm. Yeah, it is interesting. Like even that one point you made about materialism, because then there isn't there a balance in that too? We could become so. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying like there is like this. Well, I need to get my car, and I need to get my house, and then I need another upgrade, and like yeah, to me, like when it comes from a certain place, right? Like it's weird. It's
Right,
kind of crazy. But to be like, hey, I don't know, I just kind of feel like I want to upgrade, like or whatever, like
right.
kind of feel like I want to order a few more things right now or whatever. I think we can go for sure like too crazy one way or another. Or, minimalist, don't kill the earth, don't move, don't touch a thing. If you actually like, all you should do is give everything away for free. Like for business owner, right? Spiritual business owner, give everything away for free. Just exchange, just do this and that. And no capitalism, down with that. There's a better way to do it. I think it's like there's a lot of ideas of the material. Like we could even spend a whole show on materialism and ideas around it. But yeah, I think that's a fascinating topic. But there has been so much of what the people call like, well, the patriarch and stuff, right? Like
Hmm.
we're the one. We gotta have dominion. We need stuff. More resources to no mow down those trees. We don't care. Like I won't even kill a weed in my yard lately. I mean, I was like, okay, though they're beautiful. We were just admiring them today. We had tons of beautiful yellow dandelions in our
Mm.
yard. We just sit there. I could just spend all day staring. They're so beautiful. Now, when they turn white, I don't like them as much, so to be honest.
Right.
But,
But they float away.
well, my wife says they represent the sun when they're like that, then they're like the moon when they go white, and then they're like the stars when they go push. And I'm like, yeah, it's so amazing. Yet we're this like we gotta like the prototypical kind of guy. Like what was that? One of those cartoons where it's the they'll portray some of these guys as in cartoons and movies as the buffoons, the big strong guys that are like
Yeah.
with all this machismo and yeah, let's just chop down this forest and let's do that, build one of these. And there is value in some of those energies, but like it can get to a crazy place. And I think that's where the balancing is coming in.
Right.
Say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's definitely a balance. I had rejected any sort of kind of spirituality, divine, God, love, whatever you want to call that. It was just kind of all on materialism.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we're both, and I think that being here is a gift, and we should take advantage of this gift, without necessarily having to exploit everything. For me, it's like it's not taking; it's just taking what I need instead of taking way more than I need. That then just goes to waste. And I think, to your point, it's about finding that balance.
So the idea of taking, I mean, like if I say, all right, I'm taking that bear or that dog or whatever. I think it's a dog actually. I'm gonna take that dog off your shelf. It's mine. Now that's taking. I mean, but to me, that's a sense of taking, right? But I'm
Right.
like, hey, is it possible? I mean, I love that dog. I love that dog, and I would love to get that from you. Okay, you can have it. All right. And I want you to. I wonder if like you could find me like 1,000 more like it. I would just love to like cuddle with them all night long and everything, and can you help me to do that now? That might be taking maybe because like you got to go get resources and like
Right.
maybe I'm manipulating you into it or something like that.
Right.
But maybe that's taking like to me, I guess it's all based on the energy that we're in, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's and then kind of what you're capable of. I mean, no one is capable of, well, not anyone I know of, taking care of 1,000 dogs, right? So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, do what you can. It's great to have pets and to take care of them, but then it's also like, don't have so many pets that you can't take care of them. That's a disservice to those creatures for sure.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a great. I mean, but that goes to things that we get to, I guess. Now that you mention it, right? Like, if we think about it, right? Like, how many things do we have that we never touch? I mean, they're sitting there.
Right.
I think about that with clothes. I'm like, man, this has been sitting in my closet forever. I could give this would make someone happy. They're like, oh, I like this shirt. I'll take the shirt,
Right.
right? So it's like send it down to what they have is it Saver stores or whatever. I don't go to the store myself, but
Yeah.
we put it in a bag and my wife Deb, she'll
Yeah.
take it down there, bags full of stuff. And it's like, yeah, it just you're right. Like, what do you need? I do actually really admire people that decide they're going to backpack the world or something, right? I
Mm.
got three things. That's all I need or something. It is a beautiful thing. I will say that. But then again, I don't know that, I would question, yeah, somebody that has like access to where they never even use something,
Right.
but then again, am I being judgmental? Like that. I wonder about those things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I'm not trying to make judgment around other people. So when I write or I talk about things, I usually just, I'll say, well, look, in my situation, I know in my situation, I still have way more stuff. Like the fact that there's clothing that sits in a closet that goes unused for year after year when there are people in the world that could use that clothing or something, or
Right.
that blanket or whatever the case is. Yeah,
Hmm.
again, there's something very wonderful about trying to find a balance,
Hmm.
and also not, but also I want my life to kind of show that. I don't want to. It's easy to sit and make judgments of other people,
Right.
and
Right.
and that to me
They
is
should be doing
not.
better, right?
Yeah, that is not about love, or acting out of love. Or sitting in judgment of others. So
A lot of people do that though, right? They're just
yeah,
sitting there like, maybe I have stuff to change, but they need to change. Like,
right.
it's like, I mean, yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, we all get caught up in that from time to time. Um, so yeah, that's fantastic. So let's talk about that journey. You said you got really, you're saying materialistic. You did tell me about you grew up as an all-American type of kid and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So tell us a little bit about your journey that led you into like this go get it kind of thing. Because I know you're in pharmaceutical marketing and everything. And man, I just watched was it called is it called Pushers or something?
Mm.
Netflix. It's like it was with fentanyl. Like there when fentanyl was getting going, they were starting
Yeah.
to they're like everybody was making a lot of money, and then the patient's like, "Oh, this is the best drug ever. It's curing my pain and everything. I feel so good." And people started dying, and it was a big problem. So there's that movie. I think it's maybe Pushers or something like that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so it's really a cool movie. I mean, it was really cool to really illuminated what how seductive it all is. And
Yeah.
so I love it. I mean, you got a big story, so I'd love to hear your story of what led you to be a pharmaceutical rep.
Um, well, I'll go back and I'll kind of talk about kind of my youth and kind of that all American and kind of what led me into things. So, um, growing up, I'm adopted. My brother and sister aren't. For some reason, I was, adopted, and then then my parents had a couple kids on their own. So, I feel very special. I'm told I'm very special. Believe me, my brother and sister are very special too. So it goes all the way around with it. Um, but anyway, so I grew up in the Midwest, surrounded by a loving family, great role models. I was in Boy Scouts, I was an Eagle Scout, I was involved with church, did church counseling as at a youth camp for several summers. You know, um, Really kind of the all American kid kind of thing without necessarily the sports part to it. But that just wasn't my wicket, so to speak. Um, but this is also the 80s, and as I kind of moved into puberty, I realized that I was gay, or that I am gay, not that I was, still am. And so I didn't know what to do with that, especially, just to recap for some people, it's so hard to think what that world was like then compared to now. I
Mhm.
mean, it was not, there weren't parades, it wasn't kind of all the acceptance that there is with things.
Right.
AIDS was raging in terms of an endemic across this country. It was, you had the moral majority. It wasn't a really great time. So here I am, this kid who's involved with church and scouting and things like that. If I had came out, I knew I would have been kicked out of scouts as well. While I grew up in a liberal kind of denomination church, it was liberal for, I'd say, the people at the very top, the leadership, but I wouldn't say that was within the congregations. I was raised where being gay was considered wrong. So, I made the decision at that point, do I, come out of the closet and deal with that? Or do I hide who I am because I didn't want to lose everything in my world, including my reputation? So I made the decision to stay in the closet. Um, And I stayed in the closet till I was in my early 20s. And it was, you know, um, it's not a healthy way to live. I don't know how else to say that. So all the experiences around, dating, trying to find love, figure out who you are in the world, like that was all kind of arrested development, so to speak, until I really dealt with it in my 20s. Had thoughts of suicide. It was like the whole gamut with things. I think once I finally came out and told my family, of course, they were I mean, they were shocked, but they were supportive. They got through that. For them, it was the disappointment was that all the deceit and lies that we had with each other, and that they didn't think that they would not love me anymore with things. And you can imagine, and I don't want to read into it from a psych point of view, but here's an adopted child and who's the perfect child, and is like, oh, now we have a problem with the system, so to speak, with things. So um yeah, so I finally kind of dealt with coming out in my 20s. And then at that time, even though I was still kind of involved in church in that, I was just like, I'm done with religion. I conflated organized religion with God, and that's just not the case, as I've come to understand with things. And so I just, I embraced everything about the American dream in terms of chasing money, chasing fame, chasing fortune. That I kind of just fell into pharmaceutical marketing. I don't think anyone grows up as a kid and saying, I want to be a pharmaceutical sales rep. I'm going to sell drugs, but legally.
Right.
um, with things, and it provided a wonderful lifestyle in terms of like everything. I mean, traveled first class, stayed at the best hotels. But I worked a crazy amount of time. I was on a plane every week for well over 10 years, working 50, 60 hours. But it was all about money and getting more and more and more, until you realize that there will never be enough to satiate whatever this beast is that wants us to think that we always have to compete and have more stuff, even if it's stuff we don't use that sits in our closets.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah, I don't have enough shirts that I never wear, but
Right,
I gotta get more.
right.
So just because I can, and all that whole thing, right? Like what was that in the 80s, 90s movie with what's his name, with the stock market and all that? It says
Oh yeah, yeah.
because
Gordon.
it's wreckable. That's why, like, with what they
Yeah.
were doing, but just because, and
Right.
kind of thing, and yeah, I mean, it's insanity, really, it really is. I brought this up recently, I think, on another broadcast, but I always remember this. I don't even know where these stories come from, but I heard like story from somewhere, in history where the white guys are coming on the land and everything, and they're looking around, what's going on, what they're gonna get, what they're gonna get. And the Native Americans are looking at them and are like, what's wrong with these people? They look like they're looking for some. What do they want? Oh my God! Like, because from their standpoint, on an average, anyway, they had their own. Everybody has their own insanity. Even
Right.
these
Right.
tribes, they were like, we're living in paradise right here, right? Like, what's there to find? Everything's right here. Like, and you got these that idea that you have to acquire, obtain, conquer, especially for guys, right?
Right.
Or protect, conquer, because if you have more and if you take over more, then you're more protected and you can provide and all that stuff. And but you're right, it's an insatiable thing because it's a splinter in your mind, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a real thing, it's just a delusion. I mean,
Right. And
oh,
you'll never have enough. And there will always be other people with more. Like that
right,
is just like
right, right.
the nature of it. So how do you figure out to live with peace with yourself? I mean, that's a crazy hamster wheel to be on, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah, I mean, kind of where I am at the moment, and my journey could change at any time. Who knows? But I'm like, I want to experience more abundance because financially, because I want to demonstrate to people in my field that are like me, that are empathic, are caring, loving, spiritual, connected. I want to be another example of that, on the inverse of like it's okay, and sort of it's okay to have money. It's okay to have that. I mean, it's a matter of what you're doing with the resources,
Right.
that matters in your relationship with it, rather than that it's, I the money's gonna go to all like to help family and help people in the world, and yes, have some fun and do some cool things. But I mean, to this point in my life, I'm in my 50s, and I've never really ever been a materialistic focused person at all. I was always a kid. It's like my parents are like, "So, what do you want for your birthday?" And they always laughed that I would say this when I was really young. When I got older, it's more. But I was like, I don't know, a box of crayons would be fine. Like, I was sincere. It wasn't like I felt like
Right.
ask for things. I just literally didn't feel like I needed much. I mean, I already had some trucks probably. So I got a few things. I got enough to work with right here. Have my own imaginary land to work with, and whatnot. So having plenty of good time. I don't need all fancy stuff. So I've always been more in that direction. I do like experiences. So if someone says, man, you could go on this trip and it's gonna be mind blowing and all that. That's tempting, but even then, I'm not. I would be very grounded. I'd be like, I don't know, doesn't feel like it's my thing to do right now.
Yeah.
So, I just haven't. But when it comes to like, man, I just would love to be able to give more to something. I'm not that I've been the most charitable person. I'm not trying to, act that way,
Right.
but just that, there have been times when I just started putting stuff on my credit cards to give to causes that mattered to me. I didn't have the money. I'm just like, okay, I want to give to this. I don't care. I'll pay it off eventually anyway. And
Right.
people are getting the help. They need the help right now. Like,
Right.
oh, that kind of mentality. But if I have more resources, I feel like you're in a place of greater vibrancy if you're in a right relationship with it, and then you have an ability to serve, lead, and guide, and to help in ways that you aren't as capable of without those resources.
Right.
So yeah, totally. Everybody can make the biggest difference, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
there's things that brings into your life. So, but I think it's rewiring the relationship is how I always see it.
Yeah, yeah. To your point, it's context is everything,
Yeah.
with things. One of the things that's happened for me, of course, like, I still, I still buy probably things I don't need, but I'm much more conscientious about it, and I kind of take time with it. And I'm appreciating the things that I don't have to pay for, like stopping and looking at the sunset or looking at that. We have a lot of roses here in Vegas in our yard, and I'm like, and right now they're all in bloom, and I'm like, it's magnificent, it's beautiful. Like, it's taking time for that, so I think it's yeah, you can find the joy everywhere, but to your point, it's about context as well.
You want to find heaven on earth? Open your eyes. Like,
Yeah.
it's right
Yeah.
here. There's no need to search for it. So it's interesting your background. I want to make sure that we touch on what you talked about because it's huge. A lot of people were caught in that, during that time, especially extra then, during the 80s.
Hmm.
You said, yeah, uh, I know like somebody that's, been a coach to me and a colleague, friend, that's gay, that he said, yeah, for him, everybody's different, their experience. He's like, it was like I was in seventh grade, I was sitting around, we are all out at the beach, and I started looking at the guys, and I'm like, I think I'm liking the wrong thing here. Like, that's why, because to him, that's what he was told too. It's all wrong, it's bad, and everything. And it happens in different ways. So I'm even curious about that, like when was the first time, like some people say they knew from the beginning or really
Right.
young, like how is it for you? I'm curious about it.
For me, it was definitely with the onset of puberty. Similar to your friend, it's kind of like I've had conversations where less of these conversations now in my life because people kind of understand that, people are wired, in different ways in terms of
Mhm.
um, their sexual orientation. But I always said to people, well, was there a time that you decided, oh, I'm going to be straight or I'm going to be gay? Or like, no, it just, it just
Yeah,
happens.
right.
And for me, I mean, I can recall that day like it was yesterday, and it wasn't, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But, I was in seventh grade. I was with a friend of mine. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I think I want to kiss this. Like, I started
Yeah.
to have these kind of romantic feelings. And I
Mhm.
never had romantic feelings before for boys or girls for that matter, but that's for me, the switch happened. And I was just like, holy, now what? Now what do I do with this? Like, I knew it was wrong, but I'm like, I wanted to kiss him. Like I know what I'm attracted to. And
Mhm.
then as I'm looking around, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, this is this is who you are,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And so it was from that moment that I was like, yeah, yeah, this is who I am.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned some people say they knew when they were younger and things like that. I have some friends who say that. For me, I don't know because just for me, the whole idea of anything around sexual awakening didn't happen till puberty. So I had a
Right.
very great innocent childhood.
You're suspect. I knew from day one.
Yeah,
Maybe we don't know, right?
maybe.
Um, yeah, that's fascinating. I'm going to say something that's a little crazy sounding to people. But let's get into awakening here. Like for me, I could have those feelings for not only men and women, but I could have those feelings for a dog. I felt that
Mhm.
like, oh, I just want to kiss you. Like literally, like
Right,
I see myself like making out with you right now. Would I literally want to do it? Absolutely not. Like I'd be like, no freaking way. I actually want that. But there's a feeling of like just connection. And if it
right,
also visualizing the weirdest things. So this is not on the regular for me, guys, but it does these weird, what I would call for me anyway, weird, it feels like a weird thought, right? Because it's like, what's that? Like these
right,
weird come in. And it just goes to show that people like myself are more open, just I can sense everything. I could sense myself to be the most gentle person on earth. I could sense myself being a killer. Like I could kill everybody. And like
right,
so because I'm a channel, like I feel all the different things to, not that I have, but you know what I mean? Like I'm open to it at least, right? Like I feel
right,
all these things. And so I could see where people sincerely are, I get that. Like that's why I said it the way I did in the beginning. Like I know like people, you just know. Like it's not like you decided. Like if you decided to stop resisting what you probably already knew, right? Like, yeah,
right,
that I decided, right? But yeah, there's a lot of people that say, well, I think I'm bi because I have those feelings. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think there's few people who are like gay that like say later, I guess it happens though. Does it ever happen where people say I mean, I'm thinking it does, right? Every once in a while. Oh yeah, I'm gay. You know what? I decided I'm not gay now. Like almost never happens. It probably happens every once in a while. I don't know if it's like, I don't know. Like it's a curious, it's sometimes just it's a, hey, this is a place to explore. If
yeah,
you're such a case, I don't know, because to me, when I talk to my people in my life, I don't want to point people out too much, but like people in my life who are like, oh, that's wrong or whatever, I'm like, but you gotta understand, it just is, you could be
right.
against all you want, it just is. So have you ever experienced like somebody being like, oh, I think I am, oh no, I'm not, and it's sincere or whatever. Like, I don't know, have you ever?
I've not kind of run across that with things. To your like, I've known people that are like, no, I'm not, but I'm like, but you're like, yeah, you are. You just aren't ready to deal with
Mm,
that at this point
right.
with things. It's funny because there's some women that I'm very close to. I mean, my best friend is a female, and and I find some women very attractive, but I don't. But it's nothing. There's no sexual component to it. Like there's still like there's a love and an emotional connection for sure, but there's not anything more beyond kind of that. Like hugs are good.
Right. Yeah, yeah, you don't have that feeling. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
It's just
yeah,
not part of my wiring,
right, right,
Um, but it may be for other people for sure. Yeah.
right. I mean, I wonder if a lot of people say that almost everybody's bisexual.
Mm.
Uh I don't know. I don't know how to how do you measure that? If you'd have to ask people like, okay, I'm not gonna tell anybody else, but if you're honest, have you ever had feelings like this, right, for both sexes? And it'd be interesting. Probably somebody has done that. I have to look that up.
Yeah. I don't know. You'd have to buy me a lot to be sexual with with a woman.
Okay, right, yeah, for you, right? Right, yeah,
For
yeah,
me,
yeah.
yeah. Because I'm probably like if there's a continuum in terms of, straight or gay, like I'm probably on the really, really gay side.
Right, 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 right. Oh, and it may be a continuum. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Another, I mean, I do come from a psychology background and all that stuff, but um that doesn't mean much because at the end of the day, nobody really knows
Right. No.
much as anything usually. But but it's fascinating. But the pain of feeling like you're this perfect kid, and the one thing that could ruin it is to come out and say you're gay, right? Like, I
Right.
mean, that must, oh my God, I can't even imagine what that would feel like. Like they don't even know who I am though. So it's like it's all, I wonder, did you feel like, man, it's all like a charade in a way. They wouldn't feel that way with me if they really knew who I was. Did you ever think like that, or how was that for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I've written about it and kind of talked about it, I mean, to me, it was just I was living a double life, at 12 or 14 or 16, and until I finally came out. So it felt like this charade, and then I also probably had this other pressure because I'm like, I need to make sure I protect my image, my reputation. So I wouldn't do anything that could, jeopardize that secret or let that come out. And I felt like a deceit and a fraud for a good chunk of my life because of it.
Mhm.
And not only that, but this whole idea of like trying to find love or trying to date or, figure out what a healthy relationship partnership looks like. Like
Mhm.
that just was not part of my experience as a teenager. And
Mhm.
I think that's a really important thing for us to do when we're teenagers.
Mhm.
That's part of how we grow and come into our adults with things. But yeah, no, that I felt like a fraud a lot of my teenage years and even young adult years. So I didn't come out until graduate school. So I had already finished college and
Uh-huh.
was in the closet during college. And I had opportunities for sure. Um, Women friends, and but for me, I was like, well, I'm saving myself for marriage, and
Yeah.
I was studying religion and philosophy, so I got away with it.
Right, right, right,
Like
right,
there were no questions beyond that.
right,
But,
right.
so yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, I can see that. That's so interesting. I mean, I do reflect, as like again, it's more conversational. So it's like I do think about myself. I've talked about it here. I didn't really in high school there was zero dating. I didn't do any dating. I mean, for me it wasn't that type of issue, but it was just although people would say that you must be gay, you're not, you don't seem to go after girls, you don't seem to care about girls, but it's just the opposite. It's just like every other heterosexual or whatever, guy. Like the hormones were raging, and if anything, like I thought it was too much. Like I, I can't, I don't know, maybe I can't control myself. And then when I was around, what, 15-ish, or somewhere in there, yeah. Like my sister got pregnant and she had been sleeping around a bit and didn't even know who the father was. I'm like, oh, I'll never be that guy, like, so that was a double whammy. I was shy and,
Mm,
limited in that way. And then with that, I was like, no, just no. Don't even try, like, so it gave me an extra out too for my anxiety and my shyness, but also I felt like it was wrong. Like it's wrong to they have all those, it's not wrong to have the feelings, but like you've got to try to
right.
suppress it. You gotta, because you might do something stupid like so many people do. And like, so I was always reining that in. And that was positive, like it's positive in a way, right? I didn't knock somebody up or whatever they say, but I also didn't do any dating, so I didn't get to develop in that way. I did,
Mm,
there's a middle ground for me. I tend to be at times in my life, there's sometimes I'm black and white. I'm like, either do this all the way or nothing, sometimes I'm that way. And I just was too awkward too. Like I just didn't feel like I probably didn't have the social skills. I wasn't mature enough either, probably.
mm,
But those are all like stoppers for me. So I just kind of felt like it was weird, I guess, because they're different. Probably more so I just judged everybody. You're all wrong. I'm right. Like, but it's a mix of that, it's a mix of
yeah.
both and kind of confusing. So I had my own confusion, right? It was totally different, but I had my own confusion trying to find my way. And I didn't start dating until, I mean, a little bit in college, but not a lot. And then, yeah, it took forever really for me to get going with relationships. So I hear that part, the part of like the arrested development there. I hear that part. And as far as my own experience, um, but yeah, I mean, growing up at basically the same time period as you,
Yeah.
in those 80s, yeah, I mean, it was on the regular, what are you, gay? What are you, a fag?
Right.
Like it was totally like it was in my face all the time, like, and around all the time. People would say that all the time, like probably on a daily basis. I hear, hey, you fag, or whatever, like
Right.
they constantly. It's
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I mean, it's just, and all those slurs and things like that. I mean, it's all these weird stereotypes that people have. Like, I remember what it was like. And I just like, I had this one friend of mine who, you know, I didn't even hate using language like was maybe more feminine, but he was straight, but it's just like these ideas or stereotypes. And I've, known gay men that, you would never think that they're, but they
Right,
are. And
right.
I don't know. And then to me, it's just like, this is the danger with stereotypes when
Mhm.
start to make these generalizations across groups and not look at people as individuals, with things. So yeah, I mean, it was funny because I think my straight friend was more people were questioning his sexuality, not me.
Right, right,
'Cause I
right.
could play with their own. I'm like, oh man, there's so like he eventually knew, like we were close enough. We talked about it, but I'm like, yeah, this is the, when we make these judgments about people that, without really getting to know them.
I wouldn't be too surprised if people that knew they're already gay played the game too, just to
Yeah,
try to hide. Yeah, what are
yeah,
you, a
sure.
fag,
Oh, for sure.
Oh, oh my goodness. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a wild
I
thing.
mean, I think for me, the biggest damage that it did, not only did it just kind of like all these lies, but I learned to kind of disconnect my heart from my head. And
Hmm.
so I just compartmentalized all my emotions, all my feelings, because I didn't want to be vulnerable in any way. I, didn't want to let that cat out of the bag, so to speak, with it. And I think that's one of the other pieces where it really did a lot of damage was it just, I became a disjointed person because I was living these two different lives.
Hmm.
I mean,
So,
not that I was doing much in my gay life as a teenager, but it was there, you know what I mean?
right, right. So, man, there's a million questions I have. Um, So how did that affect your sense of your masculinity, once you're like, oh, okay, I'm gay? How did that affect like how you related to yourself as biological male, like how
Right.
did it affect that?
I mean, for me, I think I kind of went over, I don't want to say over to like, to try and play more of a stereotype of a masculine male, but I'm like, all right, once I came out, I'm like, I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to like work on my physique. I'm going to, not wear jewelry. I'm going to just, all the stereotypes of what I thought like a real man is, I
Yeah.
was going to play to those stereotypes.
That way nobody would find out, right? Like I'm
Right.
being the man, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah. Plus, I
stereotype.
was attracted to, I mean, I
Yeah.
was attracted to men, so I was
Right.
kind of worked that way, but it was like this almost on steroids a little bit, these stereotypes of what it means to be a man, which is, now in hindsight I realize how crazy all that was, but
And how, I mean, that's one of the big questions we always ask here. How did, you know, so one of them is you got to be tough, you got to get strong, you got to bulk up and all this stuff. What are some of the other stereotypes that you felt like really
don't
affected you?
cry, don't be emotional, don't be vulnerable, don't cry, keep your feelings to yourself. um yeah, just work through whatever pain there is by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So those were all kind of the very dangerous,
Mhm.
um I would say, aspects or energies around, masculine, hyper masculinity for sure.
There's guys to this day that I know. I mean, again, I'm going to be very effusive so that people don't know I'm talking about them. But I feel like if I'm like, hey, can you help me, with doing something that, a guy should know how to do, so to speak, like, hey, could you help me out? Like, if I were to go to ask certain people that I know, they'd say yes. They'd be nice about it, but they'd be like, I know they'd be thinking like, "What's wrong with you, dude? Man, you should figure this out on your own." Like, because I'm a guy, I should be. You
Right,
shouldn't be asking for this help. You should be doing what the hell? I gotta take care of your shit. Like or whatever. Like, you gotta take care of your thing as a guy or whatever kind of idea. I even get that. Yeah, I get that in different ways from different people in my life. Let me just put that because I'm not. I've never been. I took. I mean, yeah, I worked. I changed the oil. Whatever change tires, all these things that are associated with guys. This is what guys, but but I've never been a fix up the house or man, I'm just fascinated how things work mechanically, and I'm like super into that or anything. And like some people are, especially guys. Usually, some women are really into it too, but it's never been a thing. And then, but it's associated with being a guy. You don't know your cars, man. What's wrong with
right,
you? Like, oh, I like cars. I don't need to know everything about them. I'm not, but it's just like an ego thing to me. Like, if you're genuinely interested, fine. But it's interesting. So one of the things I do to compensate, I do have genuine interest in it. So it's not just a thing I'm laying on, but I probably consume a little bit more about my sports team and stuff
mm,
just so that I can have that extra connection with guys. Like, yeah, whatever they talk about the Chicago Bears, I probably heard all of it by now because I'm paying attention so close. But you don't realize this and that, like, because guys have those kind of conversations.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but it's always right. I know more. Wait a minute, you didn't realize this, and like,
That's
you
where
got
I
to
drew
come
the
up on
line,
top.
because yeah, I drew the line because
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like I like working with my hands and that, but the sports thing, like I'm like, yeah, I gotta draw the line there. To me, I found no joy or satisfaction,
Mm,
kind of
mhm,
in that. Um,
mhm,
but
mhm.
but to your point, I did learn later on just to like learn enough so I could connect with other
Yeah.
people who have a love of interest, in sports.
Right. Right. Right, yeah, LeBron's pretty good, isn't he? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever the time is, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, what's wrong? Aren't you a guy? You should know everything about sports, right? Another one of those stereotypes for sure. There's so many, but yeah, the one that's the most common that you mentioned, yeah, don't cry and all that. That's always the biggest one everybody brings up on the
Yeah.
show is. And to think about that, I always talk when I talk to women, they know, but I remind them like, well, why do you think men have a problem? They can't even show their emotions. You could imagine if you were brought up and you're told, don't cry, don't show your emotions. What kind of mental health would you have?
Right.
How would you be growing up in the world? And they're yeah, like, oh yeah, I'd be a wreck. Like right. So yeah, I mean, how can you be, very, very healthy? I mean, maybe if some guys could pull it off, but yeah, I don't know. I don't believe it. I mean, there's something going on. It's eating away at you if you're not able to express what's genuinely there. But I think some guys bury it so deep they don't even know it's there.
Right.
What feelings?
Yeah.
I don't have feelings, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Oh.
For sure.
I did want to get back to like when you revealed to your parents that you're gay. I'm curious, how did you let them know? When you said it was what in your 20s?
Yeah.
Oh, how did it happen? What happened when you told them?
So I only chuckled when you said you let them know. I didn't really let them know. My mother read a letter that I wrote to my sister. So I had come out to my sister. Parents are always the last because it makes sense, right? Of all the people I never wanted to disappoint in my life, it would be just my parents.
Mhm.
So my mother read a letter that I had written to my sister, just say accidentally. Um, but it was I told my sister of the results from my latest HIV test. So that's how my mother found out I was gay. Not only this her kid's gay, but clearly he's active and he's had HIV had an HIV test done. So there's something going on. So she called me up. I was living in a different city at that point. With things, and she's like, do you have something you want to share? And I'm like, I knew what she was getting at, but I'm like, I'm gonna get one last lie in. I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? She's like, you know what I'm talking about. And so it just kind of the whole thing came out, and then I spoke with my father later on that evening, as well about it. And again, there was a lot of um shock and disappointment. But I will say my father was exceptional in his response. I know he didn't understand it. It didn't make sense to him, but he just said, "I love you, and please take care of yourself." And that was it. Like that was
Mhm.
it. And
Mhm.
my mother and I, it was a much more emotional journey.
Yeah.
But from that day, it was never we talked about it, and obviously he met my husband and that down the road, but it was just like, okay, it is what it is, and we're done. And I was like, I could appreciate that, so chalk one up for the guys.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. That's interesting that your dad was a much more I want to say accepting or right away like, okay, well, if that's the way it is, take care of yourself. Like
Yeah, he
be
wasn't
careful.
going to
Yeah.
change the situation. He just was going to
Right.
accept it
Right.
and do everything he could to protect his child and let his child know that they're loved. I mean, my mother did as well, but like I said, it was
Right.
it, it was an interesting
She had to
dynamic
work through
between the two. Yeah.
emotions. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, did you feel, after the initial shock and disappointment, and what was kind of, there are some parents, right? Yeah, yeah, we knew all along, or we suspected, or whatever.
Mhm.
That does happen too,
Yeah.
right? But it sounds like if that wasn't true. Um, so did it put a strain on your relationship for a long time, or not really, or just for a short period of time, or?
I would say it was a shorter period of time. I mean, I think the real strain was the fact of we had spent all these years I had spent all these years not being truthful and not being honest.
Hmm.
And and so I think that that hurt them more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we loved you. You're our first son. You're adopted. Like, you were meant to be with us. Um, so I think that was the hardest thing, and that's the part that I obviously regret, more than anything else was. And then it's not just with my parents, but it's a lot of other people in my life that love me that I could not be honest with at that time. And but again, here's a teenage kid, and we didn't grow up in a world where I don't want to say everyone's gay, but it just was not, it was a different time. We were told if you even, drink out of a drinking fountain with someone who has HIV, you could get AIDS. I mean, it was all kinds of crazy stuff
Yeah.
that obviously isn't true, but yeah, so that's where we're
Yeah.
at.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, I mean, it's the gay people that it's a disease of the gay people, and they're bringing it
Right.
to the straight people and all these ideas. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was a wild time for sure. With that stuff. Wow. So that's yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense, right? That you would not bring it out and out, and so many people did that, that you were gay, but oh yeah, it's yeah, because those the people that love you probably are like, we would have loved you anyway. And then they probably thought, like, because I could think of it as my own child, I'd be like, I would have wanted to know, I would have wanted to love you for that, and to support you, and to be there for you with whatever you're dealing with that. And I'd be disappointed in that regard too. I'd be like,
Yeah.
I missed out on being able to help you and nurture you and all that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to guilt you, by the way. Like, I'm just saying, like,
No,
I can
no,
see
I
how it
worked through all that guilt though.
I know. Okay, you're done with that. Okay, good. Yeah. Like, that's wonderful. But yeah, I just was thinking about that. Like, I could see where people would be coming from with that. So so yeah, but now what you are you say you've been awakened for 2-3 years or so, right? And now you're doing all this work. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the work you're doing, uh, to help people in the world, and then if you could tell them anything you want about where they can check you out and whatnot, in case they want to do that.
Sure. So one of the things that I was purposeful kind of post my spiritual awakening was volunteering my time as well, with things, because I'm like, I can't talk about love in just words. It needs to be action. So I joined some volunteer organizations here in Vegas. But in particular, I wrote a memoir. I'm trying to see if I can find an agent for it. We'll see if that where that goes. But more than anything else, to me, the important thing is I started writing and created a website, donaldharoldyoung.com. I'm also on Substack as well, where I just, it's these short stories, blog posts. I'm trying to share my story, because I don't think I'm alone in terms of having a sense of a spiritual awakening, or thinking about faith, or reflecting on life for that matter. So I've kind of launched that, and that's what I'm doing. And for me, writing is part of the passion that's come out of the spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what is your so what is the biggest thing that you want to convey to people about spirituality versus like all the dogma they were raised with, most of them?
Well,
People.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the first thing I convey is that, I truly believe God is love, and I don't mean that as just kind of a sentiment. I mean that as like an ethic, an action, um, the grounding for your life, the energy that holds all of life together with things, and why we'll never be separated from people that we love, or any pets we love, whatever the case is. So that's the first piece, is just like you're loved. And you should never feel shame about who you are, because you're exactly who God created you to be. So take those talents that you have, put them out in the world with things. And I think for me, the other part of I would say in terms of my spiritual awakening or advice is I always ask why. Like, to me, faith should be about expanding your worldview, not narrowing it. And asking why will help you kind of get on that path of enlightenment.
Mm. Yeah, that's always a good question. So, hmm. Yeah, I know, like I was always questioning everything. It's kind of what in a worldly sense, has got me into trouble at times, for sure, through the
Oh
years. But
yeah, it can.
this is just the way it is. Shut up. Like,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
right.
But
Go on.
when I was full blown materialism and just kind of status quo, I never questioned everything because I was just like, I got to work for the money. I got to work for the money. I got to get to the next thing. And so I never questioned anything in my life like I did when I was younger, with things. And that's not healthy for you. I'm telling you, it's just not healthy.
Yeah, yeah, no, I could see that for sure. Even though I personally haven't really been exactly down that path. Maybe a hair, right? We all get a hair of everything, but um, so anyway, but if everybody, if you want to connect with Don, we're gonna put some links into the show notes. I know we have one for your website, and I believe for your Substack as well. And So yeah, no, that's all, that's this is great. I probably do have a million more questions I could ask, but I'm just grateful you've come on to the show. I know like you've had a huge turnaround, because I will just say this is inspiration to people. One of the things we didn't get deep into is, although you mentioned it, is yeah, how depressed, how suicidal you were, how intense that was, based on the materialism, based on the lack of connection with your spirit, right? Like so many different things that we covered some of them, but that again, I was just thinking about this today, because I mean, even recently as like 2 weeks ago or whatever, like less than 2 weeks ago, you're gonna have days, right? Your days are like, why am I even here? What's the point? It's usually for me when I'm really tired. Like if I get really tired, all of a sudden I think it's just natural. Your mind starts going negative, more so. It's like, oh my God, I guess I don't want to deal with anything anymore. And it's like, it's just you're tired. It's like, don't worry about it. You're just tired. You're worn out, or you're worried about something that, it might, like 9 out of 10 people probably be worried about anyway. Like, to go easy on yourself. We're all facing different challenges at different times. And I love that song, I'm trying to think of the group again. I get it wrong, but hold on for just one more day, like hold on for that one more day. Things do change, change is coming your way, I think is what they say in the song, right? It does, and it always will, I believe, for the vast majority of us at least, and almost all of us. You're gonna have better days, and you don't know what's on the other side of whatever challenge that you're having
Right.
right now. So just hang in there. It would be my parting words. Any last words you have for everybody?
I think that's a great point. That is as spiritually grounded as I feel now and connected with God. I have many moments where I have doubt, and that's okay. Just don't
Mhm.
stay there because you're right. Things can change in a second in your life, and you be ready to embrace that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, awesome talking to you today, Don. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Daniel. Really appreciated it.
Thank you for listening in to Just Two Conscious Guys Talking, where our mission is to impact millions of men ultimately to deepen their awakening by examining their consciousness of what's been unfolding for them with male stereotypes and programming that has allowed them to have opportunities to evolve during these times. It's an exciting time to bring more love to men and women around the world, and we are grateful for you tuning in today. Feel free to share this episode and keep tuning in, and also look in the show notes for a link to get notifications of future episodes. Until the next time, everyone, goodbye for now.